No. Okay. Thank you, Joe. A chahirirlig, a ara, agus a lochdaís the ilig, is more an annoyed them a vet anseo inniuv. Ladies and gentlemen, local government has immediate impact on all our lives, yet gets little media attention and is rarely the subject of public deliberation. Therefore, I congratulate Joe Mulholland and the McGill team for putting local government on the agenda, for affirming its significance and enabling a debate on how to reform our current structures and processes. The Taoiseach and many of the other speakers here at McGill have indicated the need for reform of local government. Such reform is needed, my friends, because Irish local government has the structures of the 19th century, the administration system of the 20th century, but is facing the problems of the 21st century. As someone whose roots are in community development and whose professional work is in public administration and politics, I read with optimism last year's programme for government, which set ambitious and unambiguous objectives for local government reform. But my optimism has been tempered, and I fear that we are continuing with the ad hoc approach which has bedevilled previous attempts at reform, and that we are going for the low-hanging fruit. As you may have noticed, the Minister is physically a tall man, so in a real orchard, he would have no trouble picking the highest fruit. In the metaphorical orchard of public sector reform, I hope he will not just go for the low-hanging fruit. Over the years, we have not lacked either understanding of the issues or ideas for comprehensive reform of local government. What has been lacking is political will, public willingness and administrative wherewithal. Despite the range of reform blueprints from Barrington to Brosnan, our current local government system is flawed. It is flawed with regard to the 3 Fs: form, function and finance. Historical institutional defects have combined with structural inadequacies, functional limitations, financial restrictions, public indifference, administrative caution and political disregard to embed a stagnant and stunted system of local government. And before I make some suggestions for reform, I think it useful to reflect on the reasons for local government. It serves democratic, developmental and delivery purposes. The local level acts as a forum for democratic participation and the carrier of political identity. Therefore, any reform needs to reinforce this democratic salience of local government and ensure a platform for active citizenship, providing an arena in which the policies affecting our daily lives can be debated and shaped and enable citizens to hold our elected representatives to account, as has been advocated by Mahon. As the level at which policies are implemented, the developmental and delivery roles of local government are critical. One of the virtues of local government is its awareness and understanding of local issues and its flexibility to respond to local needs and demands. In Ireland, such responsiveness is crucial. The problems of Donegal County Council are very different from those confronting Dublin City Council, while Cavan and Cork have also very different needs. Calls for reform are rife. We've had a citizens' assembly, a constitutional convention, as we all heard last night, has just been sanctioned. There's a lot of support for a second republic, and a strong vision for a flourishing society has recently been articulated by Task. All these developments indicate dissatisfaction with the status quo. We need serious and open debate on the value of local government, the values which underpin it, and agreement on the type of multi-level government which is appropriate for our country. Reform needs to begin with clarification of the purpose, role and functions of local government. The current opaque system is part of the problem. The role of local government as an enabler of democracy I've already addressed, but Ireland's centralised politico-administrative system has stifled local government and rendered local government insignificant for most of the citizenry. We have a system which makes local government subsidiary, not the beacon of subsidiarity which it ought to be. The range of functions assigned to local government in Ireland is much narrower than is the norm elsewhere. But in addition to their specific functions, local government also has a vital role in the furtherance and delivery of national policy, whether through mandate from the centre or through interaction with state agencies and local development bodies. However, this kaleidoscopic approach to policy implementation is fragmented because roles and responsibilities are not clearly delineated. Although previous reform efforts have diagnosed the problems and identifies ways to streamline and coordinate delivery, there has been a failure to implement the reforms fully and to enforce the required changes of approach and mindset. The potential of county and city development boards, for example, has never been reached. This, I would argue, is due to uneven buy-in by the various actors, a reluctance to align the strategies of member organisations, the constrained executive powers of CDBs, their lack of coordinating authority, and the failure to assign a strong leadership role to local authorities. We should learn a lesson from this experience. Recently, Connect Ireland has been established to link entrepreneurs and enterprises overseas with job creators at home. But I think the major flaw is the failure to connect in Ireland. We need to connect what already exists. The form of our local government system, its institutions and structures requires streamlining. This requires change not only at local level, but also at national level. The silo mentality, which prevails at central level, has been criticised by the OECD as well as this morning's speakers. The resultant lack of coherence means that local authorities have to deal with a plethora of departments and central bodies, thereby diminishing effectiveness for all. This poor horizontal coordination at both local and national levels is compounded by underdeveloped vertical coordination, leading to a lack of joined-up government. Similarly, the structures which are in place at regional level serve to further confuse. The diversity of regional designations in Ireland is absolutely ludicrous. For example, the regions designated for politico-administrative purposes such as planning and those for waste management, tourism and industrial development do not have consistent boundaries. Linkages between regional bodies and both local and national government tend to be ad hoc and pragmatic rather than strategic. We have failed to create a proper Dublin region, while throughout the developed world, coherent city regions with consolidated services and integrated policies are the norm. Do we in Ireland think we are very different? Another fundamental issue is the role of our politicians, which has been addressed frequently during McGill. Do we want policymakers or personal fixers? The clientelist, personalist model of representative government might have been appropriate in an era of limited literacy and elite education. But modernisation has altered the relationship between the representative and the represented. But our political culture and our system of governance do not reflect such changes. Our politicians need to focus more on policy making than policy taking. In his great poem, September 20th, 1913, W.B. Yeats was concerned about fumbling in the greasy till. Almost a century later, the report of the Mahon Tribunal underlines the need to strengthen the ethical framework within which our political systems operate. Attention should also be paid, as was evident in the last session, to our electoral system. Reform is also needed to ensure that our political and electoral systems are structured so as to represent the diversity of Irish society in terms of social status, gender, ethnic origin, etc. An initial, and I hope interim, measure has been taken with the introduction of gender quotas, which might address the fact that only 17% of our county and city councillors and 21% of town councillors are women. But such measures treat the symptoms rather than the disease. Furthermore, the social composition of our local authorities in Ireland does not reflect the cosmopolitan society that is Ireland in 2012. And now for finance, a topic high on the agenda today. As the debacle over the household tax illustrated, the financing of local government is unsatisfactory. The reasons for this are many. As Minister Hogan reminded us recently, by international standards, the revenue base of local authorities in Ireland is relatively narrow, with local authorities being disproportionately dependent on central government funding. This dependence has serious ramifications for the autonomy of our councils. Oh, getting the message to skip quite. The current disconnect between where money is raised and where and how it is spent has profound consequences, not just for service provision, but also for democratic accountability. And that disconnect encourages what is called fiscal illusion, when government revenues and spending are not fully observable by taxpayers. There have been occasions when reform has been disingenuously presented to the public. Sometimes what is termed savings is in reality cost shifting. So any future reform would require that each element is unequivocally costed and that the financial and other implications are evident. However, this lack of specific knowledge in many of the recent so-called debates about the household tax suggests that there is little awareness of the realities of the cost of local government services. In the much lauded Scandinavian systems, yes, citizens are involved in deciding how local revenues are spent, but they are also contributing substantially to those local revenues in the form of local taxation. Reform of our local government finance will require a change of outlook by citizens as well as politicians and administrators. We're not the only country reforming our system, and there are many lessons to be gleaned from elsewhere. With regard to the pace and organisation of reform, there is much to be learned from the coordinated and considered approaches adopted in Finland and Australia, for example. Not for them a haphazard approach, but an approach which sees local government reform as an integral part of reordering and connecting their system. Scotland has included local government people in national policy, and England keeps on revising its local government system. So the problems are clear. How might we reconstitute the system and reform and rebuild it? Well, reform and rebuilding require courage, serenity, and wisdom. Political courage to take a holistic rather than a populist perspective. Serenity to accept that there are elements we should not change. And the wisdom to undertake a comprehensive reform that connects processes and structures both vertically and horizontally. Local government cannot be viewed in isolation. The emphasis must be on joining up. In a nutshell, I think, we need to align, define and assign competences from Brussels to Brosna. At national level, we need clearly defined policies, effective linkages between departments and agencies, and service-level agreements with those implementing policies at all levels. policy making needs to facilitate structured involvement of local authorities in spheres that affect the local level, and a multi-annual budget for local government capital spending should be adopted rather than the current annual uncertainty. At regional level, we need coherence. Whatever the number of regions, the radical element of reform at regional level must be the synchronisation of the regional designation of all public bodies. This would enable strategic and coherent organisation and delivery of policies and services. I'm rushing. Such coherent regional configuration would eliminate duplication and service fatigue, and it would also enable meaningful data to be collected so that we could have an evidence base for policies and services. At local level, we need reformed structures and finances so that local government is accorded and accomplishes its rightful role. The economic role is already being championed by the Minister, but the role of local authorities is broader than economic development. Local government has a key part to play in promoting community well-being and social justice. This implies devolution of decision-making regarding issues such as transport, education, responses to crime and social issues, as well as responsibility for building standards, consumer issues, etc. Such devolution would lead to changes in approach. Choices would have to be made, with local actors making those choices and responsible for the consequences. No longer would it be possible for elected representatives, local administrators or citizens to distance themselves from decisions and blame the centre. Skipping the most things. Local government needs stable and sustainable sources of funding with increased local financial responsibility, but also increased local discretion, not just the decentralisation of penury or illusory cost shifting. As it currently operates, local government is imperfect. I think the current sub-county level should be reorganised, and I propose a system of linked, what I call meso-municipalities, a town and its hinterland replacing town councils and area committees, that these would reflect settlement patterns and eliminate the current disconnect between town and country. The meso-municipalities should serve as local conduit for all public services and all development endeavours at this level, and also as mechanisms for structured engagement with communities. The local level is also an appropriate level to implement strategies to ensure wider social composition of the elected members, and so to eliminate the tyranny of testosterone and the socio-cultural homogeneity which prevails. This is also the level where we could introduce plebiscites, recall of elected members, participatory budgeting and so on, innovations which were touched on in this afternoon's session. Ladies and gentlemen, if reform is to bear fruit, we need a long-term strategy. To achieve a system of responsive, responsible and representative local government, we need clarity on the purpose and role of local government, capacity for action at the local level, cohesiveness in central local interaction, committed leadership at all levels, community involvement, citizen engagement and continuity in our reform strategy. As citizens, let us engage in the process of reform rather than being enraged by the deficiencies of our current system. And let us ensure that by 2016 we have a joined-up system of government. A cóide is féidirlí. Go raibh míle maith.